Hey, what is going on, everybody? Hopefully, you're having a good day so far. So, today is another episode of Millennial with Billy and Mel. So, what's going on, guys? And what we're going to be talking about today is relationships, and it's going to be a good one. And so, we're going to, we titled this live today as "Relationships Are Full-Time Careers," and they are definitely. And so, we're definitely going to get into that. So make sure that you guys, if you have any comments, you have any questions, make sure you put them in the comment section so that we can answer them. We can give you guys a shout out, those types of deals. So, but anyways, before we get into all the good relationship advice that we're going to give, Mel, tell us how you're doing.
We're good. We're going to preface this that we are not experts in the relationship field, but we do feel we have some good advice and experience.
Yeah.
I am good. I have had a very busy week, but very good. Just trying to keep up with a lot of stuff, and I'm excited because last night I had randomly conversation with a couple of my guy friends and another friend while we were out about just this topic. So I told them that I would share some of the things that we talked about. We were battled a little about.
Yeah, nice. I think it's a really important topic to talk about because especially just the times that we're in, there's so many reasons why couples struggle. And I know we can definitely get into those here in a second, but for someone that's been in a relationship for a really long time, me and Megan been together for we've been married 5 years. I know that we've been we've been together at least. We've been together at least. Well, I've been probably about 10 years in totality.
Yeah.
And so for me, this is a great topic because my grandfather always used to tell this to me. He'd be like, it's a full-time career when you're married to somebody because, when you come home, the work doesn't stop, right? It's not like you have a relationship and that's it. It's going to always be good, right?
Yeah, and I was just talking. I'm doing some business. I'm doing the business conference, the 10X in Miami in March, and I listened on Monday and Tuesday nights to with other business owners, and we're talking about multi-million-dollar businesses and everywhere in between. But one of the things that has come up recently is about treating people like you do with your relationships and vice versa. So there's a lot going on with how it's all connected.
Yeah. No, I mean, everything in your life is connected, like you just said, your work life is connected to your personal life, even though a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to have this work-life balance, right? I don't really think there's much behind. Like, I don't know if I really believe in work-life balance because your life is never really truly balanced. It's like a pipe dream to me. I don't know, because there's going to be times where your relationship is really good and on good standing. And then there's going to be times when it's not, and it's vice versa. You're going to have really good times at work, or you're in your career or in your business. And there's going to be times that's not going to happen. And so I think about having strong communication skills in both is a big factor to leading to success in those areas.
Right. And I think that it also, the relationship, there's a lot to do with that and how it affects your work and business and how, it's all intertwined. Like you said, it's not really a balance. I mean, I think we've talked about this before. It's like integration in a sense. I think you had brought that up one time, but absolutely. I think it's work. We all know it. I have been married and divorced, and I've been in, a couple of relationships since that, our work. I mean, it's not easy. And, honestly, the ones that are great and I think that are healthy, even they are that way because of the consistent work and, and dedication in a sense to making it that way.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I was at the beginning, like, it's weird because when you're for me especially, like, getting into a career was like the first thing that you kind of did, especially. And then I feel like a lot of people get into their career first and then try to meld in a relationship, right? And so it's health. I wouldn't say it's about balance. I would say it's more boundaries than anything. Setting healthy boundaries for work, setting healthy boundaries for your relationship.
Absolutely.
Because without
story, sorry to interrupt, but I'm literally posting a story to our wall. It says, "Love yourself enough to set boundaries."
Look at that. Look at that. We didn't even plan that, guys. We're just that good.
Your time and energy are precious. You get to choose how you use it. You teach people how to treat you by deciding what you will and won't accept. And that's, obviously we'll get into that, but absolutely it's about setting those boundaries, in so many ways. So
yeah, and I thought I was doing that early on in my career when I was working in hospitality. That was one of the main reasons I left hospitality, was because it was starting to leach into my personal life, and it was starting to like affect me and Megan relationship. And I was lucky enough to realize that. And not a lot of people do. I feel like a lot of people just, well, I got to put food on the table. I got to do this. I got to do this. Right. And yeah, that's important, putting food on the table and paying bills. But at the end of the day, for me, I knew that it was more important to keep the team together, right? That we could figure out what we needed to figure out money wise, but do it as a team.
Yeah, absolutely. My friend Ryan just got an alert. So thank you so much to anybody who puts alerts on their phone for our podcast. I didn't know that people did that, but wow, that's exciting. And he said that just got an alert from your past podcast. Speaking facts on this one, LOL.
look at this thing I can pop up now, guys. You follow us on Facebook, on Instagram at the Millennial. Follow us, get notifications, do it all. Go like our page. And speaking of that, I forgot to even mention, we are at 500 people liking our page on Facebook. I know it's not close to 10,000, but hey, you got to start somewhere.
You got to start. I just said that with my business post. It said, you can't, doesn't even need to be perfect. You just got to start. Because a year later, my picture was incredibly different and so much more, the setup was so much better at the stationery show. But yeah, I think, I think that it's really interesting that you said something too. I wanted to bring up about the norms and the time frames and the societal, all the things that we've talked about too, about, oh, you got to be in a relationship at this point and married at this point and have kids at this point. And there's a lot of things that happen, I feel, that are rushed, that I know in my experiences and some of my friends, that, you have to do things by certain ages, and we aren't ready. We're not there. We don't know ourselves. We don't know our partner. We don't know what a healthy, happy, mature, hardworking relationship really is sometimes in our, at different ages. And even it's just stages and experience. So I think these situations sometimes because everybody else is doing it, with me, I mean, we never fought. Like, it was easy. It worked. It was respectful. It was loving. It was kind. It was like, hey, this is it. But there were other things that weren't there, and that's okay. But then, I wanted to get married and all these things, all those things, but everybody, I mean, we were just talking about this. We had 12 or 14 weddings of our friends in a 2 years, year and a half span of time. Everyone was doing it. It's like, it sucks to say that, but but I think we learn so much from those experiences, and unfortunately, there's even people that are still, that are together that maybe shouldn't be, or that or that are, and they're working on it, and it's thriving, and so yeah.
Yeah, getting back to the comparing, like you were saying before, and we talked about this, like you said, but talking about from the sense of, oh, well, everybody's married by 25, right? And if you want to be successful in your relationship, you should be married before then, and you should. So, but it doesn't stop there. Like, for me, like, the thing that, obviously me and Megan's next goal is to have a family and do that type of stuff, right? And so then, like, you get married, like, I got married, we have a house, we have all these things. And then it's like all your friends start having kids, and you're like, Okay. Like, and the race never ends, right? Almost. And it's like, with social media, you can get so like, comparative and be like, well, why hasn't happened, any of these things where it's marriage, kids, career, home, money, whatever, it doesn't matter. Um, it can definitely knock the wind out of your sails.
Sure. And I mean, I think it also pressures people into doing ththings that maybe, again, like I said, that they're not ready for. They don't
Yeah.
want. There are couples, I have a couple friends too, and they only want one child, and everyone's, oh, you don't want more, or why aren't you having children yet? Or some don't want them, like literally, they just love their lifestyle and they don't want to have children, and that's okay. And everyone needs to respect that. But, everyone's different. Like but it's funny that that what people push on you too. And like the pressures, I think sometimes people get pressured to do it when they're not ready, whether it's one partner wants it and the other doesn't, or they think that they're ready, or it's the thing to do, or the grandparents want grandchildren. And, there's all this pressure of like, okay, let's have a child. I mean, my goal and one of my goals in life was not to bring children into the world without a healthy, happy mother and father, relationship. Because my parents got divorced when I was little, and it was difficult, and single mom. And, I think I turned out okay, but, but I just didn't want that. I wanted to have two partners, and I wanted it to be healthy and happy, and make sure that everything was on the same page and whatever. And I promised myself that I wouldn't do that, but then there's other people who might have felt that way, but then were pressured into it,
Yeah. Yeah. That is so important to just kind of, especially people that are watching. We're talking about relationships. And so we're talking about it's a full-time career. And just the point you brought, huh?
It's work.
It is definitely work. I mean, like you said, when you pressure yourself into those types of situations, right? Like, and I'm the same way as you, is like, how many times do you see like people, and I'm not calling anybody out, but the situation is the situation. I come from, my mom and dad got divorced when I was, probably 12 or something like that. So I grew up a long time of them being divorced. And that was a big promise that I made to, myself at the beginning before I even met Megan, was like, listen, when I get married, that's it. Like that's that. Like we're gonna work through whatever we need to work through. And so, but like when you said like when you pressure yourself and maybe get into something a little bit younger than you should have, or you started a little bit too soon, you really haven't fully developed. I mean, that's where the problems come up, because you have two people that are trying to become one, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of problems there, and then you add children into that mix, and it gets so, like, now you've added people to the mix that don't need to be affected by those problems.
Well, and I think you said too, you have two people that are trying to become one, right? And you are trying to mold your individual. So you obviously have your own thing, and that's something that we will probably talk about, is making sure that you still have your own individuality and all these things. But I think that it's also, do you really know yourself? So knowing yourself and really being able to know the other person, and the other one's doing the same thing. So
Yeah.
that's where, hell no, that that did not have him with me, and it's not anything of no one's fault. It was just that no one was there. And I think I'm 6 years old right now. I really feel I know myself the best that I ever have, because of even just recent experiences with relationships. And I want to know, and I brought my stack of books here. Well, I can show you, like there's my love languages, but my books, and through counseling, and that's, we'll talk about that. But it's like, I think that, I wasn't fully, knowing myself. I kind of like became who I am because of these situations, in a sense. And, and obviously being with somebody that knows who they are too. And then you want to know the other, you know what I mean? You want to really dive into, to knowing that.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. I love what you said there. I think too is getting to know somebody is in my mind is a couple different things. It's actively listening to somebody else and not always trying to build a response. And so like if me and Megan get into an argument or something along those lines, we're having a discussion, not even an argument, right? Most of the time, you know, our discussions, even if they get heated, are not arguments. They're just discussions that have a little bit of passion, right? Because
Call them like you're kind of challenging each other. They're not fighting.
And it's crazy that we're doing this because last night when me and Megan went to dinner, we actually talked about this, and I said I was very thankful that she wasn't the same person as me, in so many words, because like if you have two couples that are too alike, right? We're talking about couples that are completely different, but you can run into couples that are completely alike and still have big relationship problems because there's not a counterpoint to what you're talking about, right? Like if you only ever agree, if I only ever agree with Megan, we would only have one side of the equation. Like we're gonna miss things that maybe the other person would have saw because hey, they see something differently.
Yeah, and I've always kind of been, maybe it was things that I learned after my marriage a little too, but oh yeah, Peggy said it's not good idea to walk down the aisle pregnant twice. Those marriages didn't work.
That's my mom. Love you, Mom.
Love you, Mom. And yeah, Glenn and I call it robust dialogue. It is. It's banter. It's like challenging. But I think you have to have that because it shows that you care and you want to grow. And that I learned too from counseling. Like if you don't care, you're not really fighting or challenging each other. It's just like you don't care. But I think for me, going back to what you're saying, I've always felt, I'm a giver. I like to put people before me, but I also know at this point I need to put myself first. So it's kind of contradictory. I need to put myself first, but I also want to put somebody else first. But what I feel, and this has been true in my last relationship, when you put the other person first, you're both being put first because the other person is putting you first. So that's kind of my mentality. Is like, it's being selfless, but you're also, there's ways that you need to set your boundaries. There's ways that you need to still be selfish in that you get the respect and, what you need and want and deserve in that. But I also think that while you're giving, putting the other person first and they're putting you first, you're both being fulfilled and being put first. Do you know what I mean? Like you're still putting yourself, I don't know if that makes sense. It's kind of confusing, but.
No, it makes perfect sense because a relationship is never 50-50. It's never going to be 50% you, 50% that person. There's going to be days, weeks, times, where it might be 90% me and it might be 10% Megan. I'm just giving you an example, obviously, and then it might be 80-20, the opposite way. That's in my mind, a good relationship is not just, romantic, but it's also a friendship. And a friendship in my mind is somebody that always has your back, right? Like I know for a fact, like, I trust Megan wholeheartedly. And so and she feels the same way. And it's just, I always know if I'm down, she's going to pick me up, and if vice versa. Right. And it's kind of going along the lines of what you were saying just there, is that not every day is a bed of roses.
Right. Yeah. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you kind of have to be there to pick each other up at times, definitely going to be, definitely will be up and down. And I think, that's the whole idea of a team. My whole thing is being a team. You're a unit, you're a team. You have each other's back. You put each other first in situations, even social situations and settings, and with your family. I mean, I think at the commitment that you make to somebody, obviously you're dating, and then you're, if you are engaged and you're married, that person becomes a priority over other things. And that's where things are disconnected right now. I've had these conversations with some of my friends, and in last night is the priority that you are in someone's life. And you know, and that's hard because sometimes people are more, sometimes people put the other person more of a priority than they are to that person, you know? And I think, and I just posted something too, you know, as the stories, as we were talking, and it says the moment you feel like you have to prove your worth is to someone is the moment you absolutely and utterly, literally walk away. I know it sounds harsh, but you know, you shouldn't have to prove that, you know, prove your worth to somebody. They should obviously feel that and know that. And I think, and put you as a priority, I don't know. I'm really going down like so many different rabbit holes.
No, it's funny you just mentioned that, like, you know, yes, you want to put that other person first, and we're gonna, you know, and we talked about becoming one person, and you know, you want the best for them, but you also have to be an individual at the same time because that's what makes the relationship good. And it's funny you brought that up because me and Megan have a little bit of a guilty pleasure. My mom watches this show too. It's on USA. It's called Temptation Island. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
I have, but like I don't watch much TV and like reality.
We don't either.
So much drama.
We don't either, but it's sometimes I like to watch those shows because it reminds me of how good I have it versus what life could be. So it's like watching a train wreck, right? But it's I'm not gonna get too far into the show, but it's essentially couples go to this island, their relationship's struggling, so then they get surrounded by single people, and then the single people try to break up the relationship. So it's a great idea if you're trying to strengthen your relationship to get tempted, right? So
oh God.
But I say all this to say this is that there's a couple on there, and the dude is like overly goal oriented. Like he's like you got to be crushing your goals. You got to be like having, you know, this mentality of always looking to the front, you know, forward. And he projects that on his girlfriend so hard. And he's like, she doesn't have any goals. I always have to like push her, and like she's lazy. And it's like how could you say that about somebody that you even remotely care about?
He's probably not really achieving his goals. Like he's probably just setting these goals for himself that he's not achieving, and then he's projecting the fact that she doesn't have any, you know. But there's a disconnect. Like clearly, if it sounds like there's a disconnect between you know, maybe their life, you know, whatever it is, business or career or like these goals. But it's
and it goes back to too, I think, because if you watch it, you get to see a little bit into their life. You know, he's a little bit older, he's a little bit more established. You know, I love it when like you watch these reality TV shows and they say they're a business owner, right? Like what business do they really own? But you know, that's for another story. Like if you own like I don't know. But anyways, like he apparently has his life together. I think she's like 24, just out of college kind of. And so she didn't really know herself yet. And so she's like really kind of just struggling with this because it's really damaging the rest of her life.
How old is he?
I think he's like 30.
Okay, so
and she's like 24. So
I still think that most men these days should probably be like waiting till they're like 30, 35, like, you know, some of them to be in serious relationships. But that's young. I mean, look at when I was 24, like, I mean, I thought, you know, I just think too, there's definitely differences in age. There's a lot of differences in that. But I can appreciate the show that they want to go. But you know, kind of taking a turn here is I showed you my books. I really enjoy like motivation, self-help. After I got divorced, I really got into reading. My friend gave me 3 books that changed my world going through my divorce. It was the 5 Love Languages, Crazy Time. If anybody's going through a divorce or a breakup that's really bad for years, Crazy Time is the book to read. It talks about going through from the minute you think this isn't right, healthy, you know, I want out or whatever. until the vocalization, actually, whether it's divorce or whatever, and then leaving, and then that, because there is so much time after a breakup that you need to be still healing and grieving. And there's all these things that people don't realize right now. I have friends that are post breakup or going through divorces, and they're trying to date, and they think they're just going to hop into another relationship. And I did it, 6 months later, and it wasn't enough time for me. And, and then the next one I waited a year, and so it's not about necessarily the timing. I think it's where you're at. But the other one was the whole Venus and Mars, or like men are from Mars, women are from Venus. This one was called Starting Over. And those are 3 phenomenal books, especially The Love Languages, but I have some more here. But I think that people these days, like the self-awareness and reflection we've talked about is just not there in most people, unfortunately. But that you really should be wanting to learn what went wrong. What could I have done better? What was the disconnect? What didn't we do? What should we have done? Was it just the 2 different people? Was it, what was it? And going to counseling. I mean, counseling's huge. I went after my divorce. I even went after the breakup after, because that was a toxic situation. And it was even worse than my divorce for me, unfortunately. And then I am going now, and I probably will be going for a while because of the impact that things make, and breakups and disconnect, and what happens, and how people, you put yourself out there for somebody, and you love somebody, and you give your all, and you make these promises, and then somebody doesn't do that to you. You know what I mean? You have to be going through these things. You have to be grieving and healing and talking to somebody who's a professional. And they say, you get tune-ups for your car, you get your annual physical for your body every year, these things that you get checked on. Why not go and have your relationship that is a healthy, and or maybe not, I don't know, going to counseling, every year or every 2 years, saying, hey, we need to just kind of get through some things, or we've been having some disconnect, and so the stigma on counseling is ridiculous these days for people who don't want to go. They don't want to actually admit things about themselves, and take responsibility and accountability. And yes, Peggy's therapy is a great tool. My husband and I go every other week. It has really made our relationship better, and our communication is incredibly improved. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, because even if it's individual, individuals can be going. We've had trauma as children. We've had trauma in past relationships, and going through those grieving processes, you need to be able to get through that, to be able to not take it into your next relationship. Getting fired up over here. I'm getting fired up.
Yeah, I can tell. I can tell. Just letting you go,
Getting fired up, but you have to go. I'm telling you, like put your ego aside. Go to counseling. There's even things that we talked about last week that were about my business and about things that I was struggling with that related to relationships. And it's insane, some of the things that are connected. But what's your take on counseling, and even in health, even in your relationship, like, could you guys benefit from it? Are there, instances where, you kind of think if there's times where you're like disconnected, or what?
Yeah. I mean, we haven't been to counseling as a couple ever. I like you said, I totally agree. I think, you should always check underneath the hood. There's always things that you can be improving. And I'm just like you, I'm an improvement junkie now. And I really think that was a turning point in our relationship. 3 years ago, like, I was in a dark time with just didn't know where I was going to, be with my career, and, really questioning myself and not knowing what I wanted to do. And so I started really diving into books and stuff like that. And so, it's interesting, and I don't know what your opinion is on this. And so I'm just going to go ahead and say it. So I feel like most women are more into, well, this is probably a no-brainer. Most women are more in tune with their feelings and more willing to share their feelings as a comparative to men. Men tend to be more reserved. Men do not want to talk about their feelings, especially with another guy, let alone anybody else. And so I just want to say to guys is that if you're wanting to improve anything, I'm not just talking about your relationship, I'm just talking about you in general, you're going to have to let that go. You're going to have to get vulnerable. You're going to have to get uncomfortable, because I tell people in business, especially, but in relationships, it's the same thing. Your relationship with your significant other is only going to grow as far as you have grown as a person. If you're not growing on a daily basis for growth for your personal self, you can never give that significant other any more of yourself, because you've given everything of yourself already. And so that's one of the main reasons, like when I wake up in the morning, the last thing I look at is my phone. Like, I'll come downstairs, I'll read my devotional, I'll write in my journal. Hopefully Megan's not watching. I actually, right here at my desk, I have a journal that I write in every day. One thing I'm thankful about Megan for, and then one thing I love about her. Right. And so, just doing that, just, it's like a little reminder. It'll be like, oh, and it doesn't have to be like something profound that I'm thankful for. It could be like, I'm thankful for Megan that she got me coffee today. Right. Or I love that the fact that she, read her book and fell asleep. I don't know. Those are just some examples, but,
No, yeah, I was just gonna say, one of the things that from a counselor was about doing gratitude, what you are grateful for each other, and writing them down, and then sharing it at the end of the week or something. Even, I mean, whether you want to or not, but it was just something where if you kind of get out of sync or out of whack for certain times, that it can bring you back together, because you're remembering what you do love about each other, and what you fell in love for, and what, all those things. So I love that.
Yeah. And it's funny that you mentioned gratitude, because like last night, and this doesn't necessarily have anything to do with relationships, but it has a lot to do with gratitude. And gratitude is a big part of your relationship. I was kind of getting, for some reason, I got really emotional at dinner, like not visibly, but like inside. We were actually eating at our Italian restaurant. There was this old music playing, like old Italian music. And it just got me thinking about my grandfather. And then it got me thinking about just being grateful for the things that I have in my life. And, I don't know if you've ever listened to Steve Harvey before.
Yeah, I've read the book.
Yeah, the book Jump is or just Jump or whatever.
Yeah, but he also says that he's just not that into you, and I read that in my 20s, and I learned a lot about that.
I mean, not only is he a great comedian, he's super funny, but his story is so unbelievably just tough. He was homeless. He didn't have any money. Just, if you haven't had the time to hear his story, go check it out. But he has a TV show, a day show and stuff like that. And between commercial breaks, he posts them on YouTube. He goes to the crowd and gives them like a motivational moment or something like that. And he talked about gratitude today, and it was so funny because that was the video I watched this morning. That's another thing that I do in the morning to get my mind right. And the video was about gratitude, and he said, you will never get anything else in your life that's worthwhile if you can't be grateful for the things that you have right now. How can you have more of a life if you can't be grateful for the things that life has given you right now? And I was like, that's so powerful. It's so true.
Yeah, and that goes back to even with things that we talked about, being content with where you're at, like not shooting for boom, 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 or, I wish I had this, and I wish. It's exactly the same thing, being happy with right now. That's just more of an overall with how things are going, but being grateful for the things that you do have. Absolutely. I think that's, I think that even a lot of people don't even have those things. It's funny that you said that too, when you were watching this show, and it was making you appreciate what you had. And I've actually done that before. Like a year or two ago, I was going out here and there, and that guys would maybe come up and try to talk to me, or I'd be around people and other guys, and I was like, man, I have it good. Like there's times where you do say, oh, I'm, I actually, I don't know. It's funny. I'm not there anymore, but that's okay. That's okay too. But I was gonna say too. Last night, what we were talking about, and I want to bring this up, was that I was talking about a situation about a younger girl, and I had brought it up a couple weeks ago on the podcast, and that there was a situation that I kind of confronted somebody basically in a sense of doing stuff that not necessarily was inappropriate, but like taking advantage or just not being genuine and authentic and all these things. And I stood up and said something, and I brought up the conversation and a couple of my friends, and we were talking about how like there's men and they're out and things happen. And I just said, no, I don't think that every man, they were trying to say that every guy, is gonna look and maybe flirt a little or do this or do that. And I just said, no, I don't agree. I said, look, I've been around a lot of guys. I get it. But I think that there's at some point, there is somebody who will make a man not want to entertain somebody else or something else, that they will be fulfilled enough that, and again, there's different people, and some people are always going to be like that. And we got into this battle about, oh no, it's Melissa. Oh no, it doesn't, never going to happen. Never this. And I'm like, okay. Cause stuff that I'm reading and stuff that I'm watching, there are people out there that end up getting to a point in their life. And this is just a different topic, but we were talking about 3 things that I think I've heard and I agree with that are absolutely necessary in a relationship for success and will not work without these 3 things. Even if you have 1 or if you have 2 of these: and trust, intimacy, communication. 3 things. Now you need other things too, okay? Obviously. But without trust, even if you have intimacy and communication, no trust, not going to work. You have intimacy, you have communication, you have trust, you have no intimacy, not going to work. You have, I could do this whole thing here, but what is your take on those three components?
No, I like all 3 of those components. I think, like you said, there's other, I think when I think about a relationship, I think about like a 3-legged stool, and bringing it back to what you just talked about with those 3 things, right? If you have a leg missing on that stool, that's not a stool. You can't sit on it, right? And so you really have to have all 3, and they all have to be balanced in a sense. You gotta, or at least be doing them, and so I love communication. That was, something that I think can always be improved upon. All these things can be improved upon, but and that's where I want to spin this question back to you, because which one in your mind is, and I'm not going to say anyone's more important, but what, if you had to name one that was probably the most important when it comes to a relationship, something that can bring a relationship back from the brink of, ruin, what would that be to you?
It's hard to say, because honestly, I also feel like people have different, and I don't use insecurities or traumas. Like, everyone has different issues of things where they're better at things or not good at things, or they maybe, so I think that as long as 2 people absolutely want it to work and will put the effort in and they care enough, my mom always said, love isn't enough. It's not. Love is not enough to make a relationship work. Just because you love somebody doesn't mean, it's not enough. And it's funny, but I think if 2 people absolutely want it, then you will make it happen. I think communication you can work on. I think trust and intimacy, I don't know that you could work on trust. If it's broken, I don't know that it'll ever be fixed. I think intimacy, it's either there or it's not. I mean, yeah, you can work a little harder on things, but that's kind of something that's there.
Well, let's be honest. Most relationships start because of intimacy. Let's not be around the bush here, right? Like that's most people do not be like, oh, that person looks super trustworthy. Let me go ahead. like, oh, this
You have
person.
to have some type of trust when there's intimacy.
Yeah, but this is true. But when you're looking across the bar or wherever you're, looking
Oh, they
at,
look like a good communicator.
man, that guy can really have a good conversation.
I
I
do.
bet
I
you.
actually enjoy that. I find that, to be attractive.
But the first thing that you look is not is looks, right? We're noticing somebody, the way they hold themselves, the way they look, the way they dress. It all speaks to what we're looking for in a soulmate, right? But I mean, I agree. I think the biggest one that comes down to relationships is communication, because there are going to be times, like you said, where intimacy is not enough, right? And stuff like that. So for me, it's communication, communication, communication.
Well, yeah, because you're right. You have to communicate about those other things. You're right.
Yes.
You're absolutely right. Like, yeah, I guess what I'm saying is if the communication is there, like you're both able to communicate, and then you can do it better. But I think that there's some people that you're right. Like some people are not good at communicating. And then it's going to break down everything else sometimes, because you could communicate that you miss having, with the intimacy, or you can communicate that, there's issues with the trust. But yeah, but I honestly feel that, without, even without one of those, like even if those were the legs of the stool in my opinion, I don't think it would, if one of them's not there.
Oh, I agree. I totally agree. It doesn't stand, but to kind of take this into a different direction, right? Because I am a firm believer in this. I think it happens a lot of the times when you start your relationship. It's new, right? And you don't notice things about people quite yet, right? And then let's say you move in with that person, then you start to notice a couple other things, and then you spend a lot of time with this person,
moving
right?
in too soon.
Moving in too soon, right? But
my
even
parents call it playing house.
but even before that, like at some point you're going to notice not every in the beginning part of your relationship everything's perfect, right? I would always hear those couples say, oh, we never fight. You're like, come on now, like you never fight, like. And so like there's going to be a moment where you get through that stage of everything is perfect. And so, and you're, like I said, you're starting to notice things about people. And for me, it's like, hey, that's who that person is. I need to accept them for who they are.
Right.
There are things that we can all improve. Don't get me wrong, right? We can always improve, but there's just some things about people that are probably, and especially the older you get, the less likely those things are going to change.
Right. Like set in your, absolutely. I mean, I know, and then there's people who are even older are set in their ways. Like they're absolutely not going to change.
Yeah. And so I think that comes down to being accepting and accepting somebody else's flaws, if you want to call them flaws, because you have flaws as a person. Like there might be somebody watching on here today thinking that their life is perfect, but I'm sure if you were to ask your true friends, hey, what are some areas that I could improve on? If you ever want to have a great experiment, if you ever really truly want to improve, ask the people you care about the most about where you can improve, because you're not always going to see it. And so, but being accepting of other people's flaws, because everybody wants to be accepted. And so if you're not willing to accept other people's flaws, how in the world can you expect somebody to accept you?
Yeah, I agree. I think I've struggled with this in my past. I'm a perfectionist, so it's like I try to be perfect, and then you think everyone else should, and you have these high expectations of everyone, and then they don't live up to these expectations, or of this perfectionism. And I know it doesn't exist. I mean, obviously it's just more of things in the past, and I'm exaggerating a lot. But what do you think about with the acceptance of flaws, or the acceptance of this is who I am. Do you think that there's things that people that it, I guess I need to propose this in two ways. Do you think that there's sometimes that it's, what if it's something that they could, I don't know, this is such a bad, it's like, I'm not explaining this. If it's something that how they're treating you, or where they're, it's like, I don't want to say that it's necessarily a flaw. Can it be worked on? Can it be improved? Like you just said being improvement junkie, like we're the same way, but what about when people can improve and we know that there could be improvement, or there should be, and again, maybe this is this is like contradictory of what I'm saying, but like, so you're supposed to accept something that maybe goes against your own boundaries, I guess that's what I'm saying. It is your standard, your boundary, what you feel you deserve. Are you to accept someone's flaw if their flaw is maybe something that's detrimental to the relationship? I don't know. Am I explaining this right? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like I totally get what you're saying. Like, of course, there are certain circumstances, and like you said at the beginning, we are not like, everything that we say is not like, oh, this is how you should do it, because every relationship's different, every person is different, right? And so, like accepting of the fact, like you should not, if it's like you said, detrimental to the relationship,
well, then
like
you're go.
yeah, like if it's like, let's just say, I'm just gonna call it like it is. Like, let's just say this person is like heavily into drugs, right? We'll just rip the Band-Aid off here. They're heavily into drugs. You can be accepting in the sense of saying, I know you have a problem, and I knew you before this, right? And I know you're sick right now, and I understand like what you're going through, but it doesn't mean you have to stand for it. Like, you don't have to stand, like if someone's treating somebody else in a way that's detrimental, that's demeaning to you, like you don't have to stand for that, right? There's a difference, I think, in my mind, and you correct me if I'm wrong. You can definitely be accepting of somebody else, right? But you don't always have to stand by what they're doing. Like, you don't have to be like, hey, I endorse this, right? Like, no, it's like, I know how you feel. I understand that, whatever situation you're going through. But listen, like, if we want to continue this relationship, even friendship, this is not even just relationship as in a relation or a romantic partner. This is friendship too. It's like, listen, if you want to continue this friendship, these are the things that have to change. These are the things I stand for. And you would hopefully want that person to reciprocate that trust, that communication, right, that we talked about, that they would trust you enough to be like, okay, hey, I really want this friendship, so I'm going to, take their advice or listen to what they have to say, and then make a decision from that standpoint.
Yeah, and I think when we talk about flaws, it's kind of funny because, like, of course, I'm looking at all my experience. Like, I'm like, just everything's running through my head. But I think when we're saying too is acceptance of flaws, like, okay, somebody doesn't clean up, they throw their clothes on the floor, and it's really annoying, and I have to clean up after them. Okay, I can accept that, no problem. Like, I'm not going to be the one like, naggy, you won't do this. You're just gonna do it. Like, okay, like this problem solved, right? So there's little flaws like that. And maybe somebody does, the snores, or I don't know, can you accept somebody that's a really loud snorer? I mean, like, I don't know, like little flaws. I guess I'm thinking of like big ones. And I think we answered our own question, which was no, there's certain things that are going to be who they are, and does not fall in line with who you are and who you see as a partner. You know what I mean? There's going to be absolutely a point where it's not necessarily a flaw. This is a who you are, and either it works or it doesn't. I mean, I think, but I think that the little things absolutely get to a point where people, you just have to be, no one's going to be perfect, obviously.
Yeah, and something that I wanted to bring up, it's not only hard enough to be in a relationship, going back to romantic relationships, right? It in the beginning part of your relationship, it's sometimes tough to, and this is something I had to learn personally. Sometimes it's tough to, because how do I put this? Your friends and people can get in the way of your relationship, right? And that can be super tough. And that's another thing, is that especially when you get married, it is all about you guys. Like, the other things that are going on around people in relationships should be not rear their ugly head into your relationship. And so
Oh, yeah.
and so when we were talking about setting some boundaries, that's a boundary that must be set. Like, having conversations with friends about your relationship, or even family members, in my mind, is off limits.
Mm-hmm.
Completely off limits. If it's ancillary stuff, like, oh, we're struggling to whatever. I don't know what that looks like, but personal stuff that is discussed between husband and wife, or even boyfriend and girlfriend, for that matter, should never be brought up. Like, there's a difference between venting to your best friend, like, oh my God, so and so is sometimes can, not text me when I want him to text me right away, right? That's more of a naggy type of, like you said, a smaller thing. But when you have real relationship issues, and I mean like real stuff that you're trying to work through, that's where it probably is better to talk to somebody that's a therapist, because they're unbiased, right? They're a neutral party in this matter. But when you talk to your friends and your family, like, they're gonna back you up, and the same thing for the other side, right? They're gonna back their friend up. They're gonna back their cousin up, or whatever.
You're right. And you're building these sides of, like, who defends, being defensive. I think, I have been in situations where I've been the friend. I've shared a little bit, but I try to keep things private, and I think that there's things that shouldn't be spoken about. But yeah, I think that you can hear good advice, but most people don't even take the advice. Like, they want to talk about it and they want to vent, but are they really going to do what they need to be doing, or will they be doing it already? Like, I think people can give advice and what they think from the outside. We all see it differently from the outside, and it's so much easier it's easier said than done. It's easier to give advice. And back, 4 or 5 years ago, people who could have given me advice then, I didn't want to hear. And I'm giving the same advice now to other people, and they don't want to hear. So, when you're in it, you can't see it because of the clarity. But I think when you're talking about it, you're definitely building up that, certain feelings against the other person.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, and then that, the other person, it might not even be that bad of a situation, but the other person is emotional, and they tell their family or their friends about what's going on, and then they take their side, and they don't really know the other side of the story. And so, when I was a manager, I would often tell you get servers and stuff arguing with each other, and be like, there's your side, there's their side, and there's what really happened, right? Like,
Sides.
like,
Mine and the truth.
yeah. So, and so that's why, like, especially early on in relationships, like, if you can't together work them out, then involving other people is not going to help. Unless it's a professional person of some kind of therapy, right? A marriage counselor, priest, I don't know, whatever you go to. But if you're going to, it's funny, like, you never take the advice of somebody that you wouldn't trade lives with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So why would you do it?
Well, and I think that here's something interesting, because, again, like I said, I have a really, dynamic group of friends that married, single, going through divorce, like, different stages. And I think, especially during COVID, there's been a lot, including my own relationship, that it's either things have been really affected and ended, and or gotten better, gotten stronger. But it's more on the not stronger part in some of my friends. And I think that maybe also talking about it so much is their way of coping with it, because they don't want to really face the reality that it's not healthy, and that there are problems, and they don't, and they don't, it's like a cry for help because they are talking about it, but they should really absolutely be going to a counselor together, to solve these problems, because what's it going to do individually talking about it? If you know what I mean, you have to obviously be talking to each other. And even if you're talking to, your friends and your family, and even if you're talking together, it's not working, but if you're not talking together, like you're right. I mean, it's funny. I think that there's something to be said about what action are you taking, like taking action to help this and fix this, because just kind of venting to people, and like I said, even hearing advice and even hearing things, if you're still not going to take action from what those people are telling you, then why are you talking about it? It's just a way to make yourself, like kind of hang on. Like there are people that I know that are hanging on by a thread in their relationships, and it's like, just leave, just go. You can they give 10, 20, 30 examples of why they should. You see it, you hear it, you witness it, and then, but they're just talking. They're not taking action, and I think everyone has to do things at their own time. Absolutely. But for me, at my point in my life right now, it's exhausting sometimes, and I have to remove myself from the situation. And I say, and again, like that comment that I had wrote before, it's not just with romantic relationships, as far as, if you have to prove your worth to somebody and beg somebody, like, I'm not going to beg anyone to be with me. I'm not going to, compete with anyone, any women, any, like, no, I'm not going to do that. I set my boundaries after I was in a bad relationship. When I got into another relationship, when I was healthy, when I was ready, I set those boundaries. I absolutely, like, I'm not going to be just a hangout girl on the weekend, or text, call, flirt, Snapchat, la, la, la. Like, that's great for a couple weeks, couple months. Like, I would like to see where this goes, and I would like you to take me on a date or something. I mean, I was like, like, I'd like to go on a date. Like, I'd like to have dinner, and like, let's see where this goes. And I put, I wasn't bitchy. I wasn't needy. I wasn't pushy. I just said, hey, I like you, and I'd like to see where this goes, but I was like, but I'm not going to, like, I don't need just to be texting and hanging out and hooking up and blah, blah, blah. So I think it's the same thing as where you can, I was able to set those boundaries go at the very beginning of the relationship. But I think that there's people that during the relationship and when it comes to the end, they're at the point where, like, they can't stand up for themselves. And I've been there, but I learned from it, and I was able to then grow and change. But I think that there's people who the respect, like, you get disrespected and you lose respect for yourself. You have to build that respect up. You have to, no one's going to do it for you. Like, you have to do it, especially if you have kids. And it's, I think a lot of people right now are going through this situation, if they're not in a good relationship, is what is keeping you there? What is holding you back from starting over and getting your life together, and it's okay. I've done it, once, twice, like, I mean, marriage wise once, but at the same time, like, relationships, like, life goes on, and it's going to be way better on the other side, where there's not toxicity and all those bad, things going on. It's just that I think it's the fear and change and all those things. It's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah. I think you said it perfectly. I think it comes down to fear of the unknown, fear of what's going to happen, fear of what people are going to think about me when I get, when you break up with somebody or you get divorced. It's always that, right? It's like, well, who, what's my parents going to think when I tell them, right? And what is who so and so down the street going to think when I'm moving out, right? Or whatever it might be. Like, it just comes down to fear. And like you said it perfectly, is that why stay in a relationship that's not good for you, that's not good for that person, that's not going anywhere? You have very limited time on this earth, right? We're not, the next moment's not guaranteed. So why spend any moment doing something that you don't want to do in any aspect of life, not just in your relationships?
Absolutely, because that's one more minute, one more day, one more week, one more month that you could be working on yourself. And we all say you have to be happy with yourself, and you have to love yourself before you can really be happy with somebody and love somebody. But absolutely, that's one more. It's one more day, and like I said, in week, and month, and year that you could be working on yourself, and then being with somebody. If that, if eventually spending that time with somebody that it you want, you know what I mean, like it you're supposed to be with, but you're stuck spending those days, weeks, months, and it's hard right now with COVID. I think it's like there's like a stop on things right now, but now's the time, because you can grow and heal, and then when shit opens back up and you're ready to party, we're going out, we're gonna find somebody at that point, but now's the time to be working on yourself.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
end those toxic relationships, and then we can go out and we can,
Party like it's 1999.
yeah. But I mean, even, with you and like healthy relationship, like this is time now to be improving those relationships, taking the time like you do, and you guys, and working on, if there are disconnects with communication, or trust or instincts, like use the time now while, there isn't much going on. It's a time of growth and, improvement. I love improvement junkie. I never heard that before.
Yeah, improvement junkie. So, but I know,
I'm excited to see what you got here.
I know. I was gonna say, I know we could go on for the next 3 hours talking about relationships. So I think we should definitely do a part 2 of this.
I think so too. I was gonna say that.
And then maybe we'll bring on a relationship specialist. Maybe we'll find somebody. There's got to be somebody in the Central PA group that's a relationship specialist that we can bring on.
Yes.
That would be amazing. So, Derek, if you're watching, I'm sure you know somebody.
Aspiring, what is it called? We're aspiring, what's the word? Enthusiasts, or I don't know what the word is, but we're very interested. Again, the Millennial podcast does not, promote expert advice or.
No, we bring on experts, but we are not the experts.
We like to think we have, like I said, good experience, but
yeah, we're on the older side of the millennials.
And for me, it's only because I've screwed up so many, many, many times. But what I do is I learn my lesson, and then I can say, I can talk about it because I'm not making the same mistake. So.
Yeah. Well, you're going to learn a lot, and I know this is sad for relationships, but it's with anything in life. You're going to learn a lot more from failure than you ever learn from a victory. So, but it is that time of the show, right, where we do the millennial meme of the week.
That's good.
I'll have to start doing that. But it's my turn, right? It is my week. And so I find this very fitting because I am married and stuff like that. So this happens very often in my relationship, but I know it happens in other people's relationships because you get mad at somebody and then this kind of stuff happens. So when you're mad at Bay, but you still want to hold hands. So for those that can't see, it's a little otter, and he has like he's holding hands with a human, and he's got this face on that's very like in displeasure, but he's holding hands. So,
but also, you're forgetting the green leash that's on him as well.
But I thought that was really funny because how many times do you get into an argument with somebody and then be like, "Hey, are you hungry? You want to go get something to eat?" And it's like, "Yeah, let's go."
Well, that's another relationship advice. I saw some memes about that, but typically with women, if they're angry, they're usually hungry. So if you feed them, usually they'll, calm down. So
yeah, that's usually my go-to is like, "Hey, you want to go get something to eat?" And it's like, "Yeah, sure, let's go get something to eat." Okay, let's go. And then an hour later, you're good.
Problem solved. No, it's good. But yeah,
So,
I have been getting hangry lately.
so there's another moment, right, where we like to end the show with, and it's Mel's favorite because it's Mel's moment. So where Mel gets to instill some wisdom, some advice, some general knowledge, maybe some trivia knowledge. Who knows? We don't know. It's Mel's moment, so she gets to pick whatever it is. So Mel, take it away.
I feel I've given a lot of moments this entire podcast, and I could go on for days, as you know. But I love what you said about life is just too short. That's what I have been, sharing a lot lately, especially with relationships. Why waste time on anything anymore? Okay, jobs, um, you know, whatever. Volunteer. I don't want to say volunteering. Relationships is what we're talking about. Why waste time on something that is not healthy for you and you're not happy, because life is way too short. We're going to blink, you're going to be 90, and you're going to look back and say, I regret this. So take today, take this weekend, make some moves if towards things. Even if you're in a healthy relationship, what can you do better? We're not just talking about bad relationships. I'm not in a relationship, so hey, but I'm working on myself, and I just think is to be authentic. There's situations where I've been in where things come out after the fact, and we all know that the truth always comes out, and karma, and it's like, just be authentic. Know that you did everything you could, you were right, were honest, you tried to communicate, you were trustworthy. The things that we're talking about that are important, because after the fact, it's really crappy for people to know that there was that people weren't authentic. And I just think that do what you want to, give what you want to get.
Perfect. You can't say it any better. Treat everybody like you would want to be treated.
And read this book.
Great book. Yes. And if you've already read it, read it again, because you probably have changed in that time period. So, but anyways, guys, we really appreciate everybody that jumped on today and took some time out of their day to come yell about relationships. So if you first time watching, or you're listening somewhere else, please make sure you follow us, right? On Facebook, Instagram, at The Millennial. We're there on Instagram, so go check us out there. On one of the other platforms, whether it be one of our podcasting platforms, go check us out there. And like I said, we're at 500 members on the Millennial page. So if you are a member of that page, please share that with other people, because we'd really appreciate it, because we're trying to get 10,000 followers. So that would be really nice. So
we're gonna start. I think I told you we're gonna start some giveaways. So yeah,
it's gonna happen. So, but anyways, guys, like I say, always enjoy your weekend, make some good memories, take some time to work on yourself, work on your relationships, because I promise you, if you can do that, it's gonna make it better. Because when you get better, everything else gets better. So, anyways, guys, enjoy your day, and we'll talk to you soon. So have a good one.
Bye.